Information, Dr. Grace McLean. Please put your hands together. And the other presenter is Mrs. Nicole Manning, Senior Director of NC TVET. Please put your hands together. The honor is mine to present to you the first keynote speaker. Dr. Grace McLean joined the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in July 2009 as Deputy Chief Education Officer and was subsequently promoted to Chief Education Officer. She's now acting as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, a graduate of Edwin Allen Comprehensive High School in Clarendon. She's a trained teacher and a human resource practitioner. She taught at the St. Jago High School for 5 years, where she served as a head of department. Before joining the Central Ministry, she served at the Hartrust NTA, an agency of the ministry. She served for 14 years and left as Senior Programs Director. She holds a Doctorate of Philosophy in Career and Technical Vocation Education, a Master of Business Administration degree in Human Resources Management from the University of the West Indies, and a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Technology, as well as a certificate from the Harvard Business School in Strategic Data Management. Her wealth of experience and technical skills include TVET leadership, strategic planning, disruptive innovation, log frame planning, and balanced scorecard methodologies. They also include change management, strategic data planning, business process improvement, as well as behavioral interviewing techniques. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to present to you Dr. Grace McLean.
Thank you very much. Our moderator, Mr. Darian Henry. Dr. Powell, she came to us before the session started and she indicated that there is a lady who has said we need to start our sessions with her. And the lady has volunteered to pray. As the devil would have had it, she's not in the room right now. But the devil shall not conquer. And so the lady is actually here. So we are going to invite her to just ask the Lord's blessings on this session before I do my presentation. Amen.
Thank you very much. Could we stand and bow our heads in prayer, please? Father in heaven, we thank you for this TVET conference. Aeons ago, before you were born, it was part of your plan and purpose. And so we lift up this wonderful conference in your mighty and holy name. Let it be guided by your Holy Spirit. Let every speaker, every attendee, every student move in your presence, and let the work that you wish to be accomplished be done. We thank you, O God, for your awesome presence, and may you continue to bless us. May the Caribbean grow as TVET people, not only academically inclined, but also creatively inclined. And we lift up this prayer in thanksgiving to you and you alone. Today and every day we pray. Amen.
So ladies and gentlemen, we are fully covered. Co-presenter, Mrs. Nicole Manning, organizers of this conference from the University of the West Indies, Dr. Disraeli Hutton and the rest of the team, Dr. Powell, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is certainly my pleasure this afternoon to be asked to make this presentation from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information on TVET and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the tipping point. Okay, so the moderator actually did the introduction, but he forgot a most important part of my development, and it's to say that I am also a grandmother. So if you focus on the fourth box, you will see my involvement from a Christian perspective. You will see that I am a wife, I am a mother, and importantly, new lease on life, I am a grandmother. So ladies and gentlemen, my presentation will comprise just 4 short areas. I'll present some perspectives on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, TVET and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, looking at some tipping points, then I will make a few recommendations. Please listen. So you would have just gotten your 101 on revolutions. We are now in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and of course, you can read in your own time the transition from the horse and buggy, from energy and oil being utilized to do a number of different things to keep the wheels of production going, until now we are where we have the conversion of technology through the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So the slide that you're looking at now has a quote from Klaus Schwab, and he has written a book on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he has said, it represents a fundamental change in the way we live, the way we work, the way we relate. It's a new chapter in our development. It is about enabling extraordinary technology advances. And it's about seeing the coming together of all the revolutions, the 3 that we would have had before, that has brought us to the tipping point. So when we talk about the Industrial Revolution, and it is commonly known as Industry 4.0, we are talking about the coming together of the digital, the physical, and the biological space. And you may not be able to read, but I will elaborate a little later, but you're speaking here about virtual reality, augmented reality, bioprinting, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, robotics, cobots, and of course, the list goes on. So, indeed, we are in TVET at a tipping point. And so this tipping point will see us having to definitely prepare ourselves, educate ourselves in terms of the different types of technology that will make our lives easier. Cloud computing. A few years ago, if you handle a lot of data, like myself as Chief Education Officer, you would want to keep all your mails for 7, 8, 9 years. And there was a time when I had to be taking mails out of my ministry mailbox, create a different mailbox just to store them, because I was told by Google that I'm at 98%, I had 2% left. There was a point when I got to 100%, and I had to be doing that because I started to lose mails. I just saw that disappear right before my eyes, because unlimited data can be stored and you can access so easily. As a matter of fact, it is so easy now that anything that you do on your computer with Office 365, which is the newest Office operating systems, can just be automatically stored on OneDrive, and you access anywhere, anytime. That's where we are at. Analytics, collecting data, utilizing what we have said, how we eat, where we go, to determine what will make us more comfortable and happy. That is where big data, and that's where analytics actually plays its role in terms of just ensuring that things can be done much easier. Cybersecurity, of course, horizontal and vertical systems, the integration of operational and management systems. And of course, we are also speaking here about little instruments like robots who are carrying out a lot of activities that humans once had to do. As a matter of fact, Surridge Vargo has indicated that Dell perhaps could be preparing for the factory of the future, which will not have, well, they may have people looking like us, but they will be robots and cobots. That is the harsh reality that we are now faced with, ladies and gentlemen. So, as we speak about security, we are seeing a moving away from cyber security to Internet of Things security. What that means is that one application that is written to protect everything that you have in your business, once it is done, everything is protected, everything is connected. It means that once you make one transaction, it can update just about any other transaction that is related to that particular transaction. When an airline ticket is booked, I just see it appear in my calendar. I don't do anything, but the flight is not going to miss me because it is right there. Transactions. When I was at Heart, we spoke about central repository. In the ministry, we developed the CREM, the Central Repository for Educational Material. No longer do we need to have a repository because there is blockchain technology, and I'll say a little more about that. We are moving away from buttons to voices and gestures. Retina scan, your finger being used to recognize you to go on your computer. Other things, for example, Siri. You speak to Siri and Siri speak to you as if you have a best friend. You no longer need a best friend because Siri is there. And there is Bixby too on the Samsung phones that give us quite a bit of trouble from time to time. We are no longer talking about those huge spreadsheets with a lot of data that you have to guard with your life. There is artificial intelligence that captures all the information that is required. Package this information in a way that you can utilize this to inform decisions. Interestingly, drivers are becoming obsolete because vehicles are now driving themselves. And importantly, we now have robots and cobots. In some of the hospitals overseas, you see them assisting patients. You can send a cobot to go and get the medication. The cobot can talk to you, how are you feeling? What do you need? And of course, it goes on and on and on. And so, blockchain technology, just to provide a little more information. I have two areas on that slide, blockchain technology and higher education. So we are now in a scenario as educators where blockchain, which of course is the center here, right in the center here, and all revolve around what blockchain is actually able to do. So there are encryptions and all of these codes and so on that are utilized. It's done in a particular way where your data remains safe. You can be sharing with other persons common information, but it is protecting everything that you have. So a student is a part of the system, goes to school, does these exams, it is marked, it is placed in a system. You have the accreditors and the validators who make sure that there is some quality in the program. The student's profile is uploaded on a system. The student is able to get a digital badge, which has all the information in terms of the courses that he or she would have pursued. No longer you need to be giving 4 or 5 days for a transcript to be sent off to the university, because employers can now tap into the system and to see what you have as an individual, and you can be employed immediately. That's what blockchain technology can do for education, and it can be used in just about every single area. Right now, the Ministry of Education and CXC, Dr. Granston, who is here, this is what is currently being used for examinations. CXC has introduced it, City and Guilds has introduced it, and so we have young people who are getting digital badges, and they are super excited about it. It's about blockchain technology. It can be utilized in all other industries, as you see across here, this section. The legal profession, it is considered to be the most successful in terms of how lawyers use this for their case files, to look at precedents and to have information. And of course, it's used in government, it is well used in the logistics industry, and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the future. And I'm getting so excited that I don't even know if I'm moving back or forward. Okay, so just to get a little more granular, if you look at this slide, you would notice that there is a robot that is teaching all these formulas and so on. So this classroom is set up in such a way where everything that is to be taught is there, and he's actually using his fingers on this specially prepared board, and no longer do you have to write with whiteboard and chalk and all of those things, no longer important. If you look further, you see I can order my KFC and a drone can take it right to my door. Literally, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it happens. Your package, you don't have to wait until the DHL comes anymore. It can take it right to your door. And some of these things may not be in Jamaica yet, but I'm telling you, it is coming, and this is considered to be the tipping point. Virtual training, virtual reality, augmented reality is going to make learning so much fun and so much easier. Unlimited training condition and simulation, real-time instruction, reduces teaching hours. I see where these young people no longer need a book to write in. Everything is on the television. I see a big heart on my television at home. My daughter is studying dentistry, and I see the heart pumping and the blood flowing wherever. I had to draw heart and try to understand what is this thing about right ventricle and left ventricle and all of those things, and I could not understand this flat thing on the paper. How can I visualize a heart? But they said, we must learn the parts of the heart because we're going to get it in the exam. No longer do they do this. Everything is available right there at their fingertips. Additive manufacturing. I was just talking to my colleagues a little earlier before I came down here. There are actually machines that can actually, for example, print a simulated heart, and medication can be tried on this heart to see how it works before it actually goes into an individual. Ladies and gentlemen, we are certainly in the future. Look at this bus. This is a trailer. This is a driverless trailer. What this does, it uses a technology that is called LIDAR, sometimes spelled as LADAR, which is laser detection and ranging. It allows for the sensors in that vehicle to know what's the distance between that vehicle and another, where is the position, do you go right, do you go left, is it a car, is it a building, what is there? So you can actually see that vehicle going to wherever it is sent because of how the system is actually set up. This is perhaps my most interesting slide, which speaks about a little more about Internet of Things. So when you look at this here, these are all the things that we do. We wear clothes, we put ourselves together, we go to work, we have all kind of wearable objects. So I am wearing a smart changeable band watch. So I have about 5 or 6 bands for this watch. But that's not what is important. On this watch, I am able to see the time. I am also able to see if my heart is beating fast. I'm able to see how many steps I've done. I'm able to see if there's something important that I should have remembered. It is literally connected to my phone and my computer. Now there's another step. I could actually connect this watch to my doctor. It goes into a system at my doctor, and if my heart rate is too high, the doctor can actually call to say, Miss Mark, something not going on right there, maybe you need to come in for your medication. That's where we are at, that's the reality. And sooner or later, he may be able to send a drone to come with the medication at the office so I can continue the business of education. I don't have to leave and go in the traffic. That's just the reality. There we are, ladies and gentlemen, the tipping point. And so when we speak about TVET, we now have to get into the future. Augmented reality in our classrooms using halogens. So you can actually have this glass that you put on, and it can assist you in seeing the entire human body as it is real. The police can use this. They can have this on, and when they see your license plate number, all the information about you can be presented. Just look at what is happening in agriculture. Just look at perhaps the little scary things of a chip actually being placed in your hands for you to access doors and access other services. That's just the reality. And I wanted to point out this slide specifically as a real-life experience, smarter and more efficient communication. So I have the opportunity of traveling on your behalf on a regular basis. And so I take Uber. So I get my Uber app, and because the Uber is not going to ask me any question, I can go down to Burlington and down to Macy's and those places. And nobody going to ask me anything. Just pay your money, and it comes, and you go on, and then so on. So when I came back to Jamaica, and I'm getting the prompts on my phone for meetings, I am noticing that it is saying request Uber. So I took a picture of it because I wanted to show you. So my phone, whenever I have a meeting, it tells me here, today 10 a.m., it's gonna start in 4 minutes at Rose Hall, and it is giving me the option of requesting the Uber. So if I needed a car to take me to the meeting quickly, I would get there. That's just the reality. And I found it very strange that that is actually happening, and that is where we are. And so that is why it is making what we have to do so much easier. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just some stats. Oxford indicates that between 47 and 81% of jobs will be under threat in 20 years. Of current job activities can be automated. World Economic Forum predicts that 5 million jobs will go in the next 5 years. And the ILO says that over 137 million Asian workers could lose their jobs over the next 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, it is there. Foxconn replaces 60,000 factory workers. This other company has a robot that is called Ross, that is a lawyer, and he's able to read and understand language, postulate hypotheses, when asked questions, research and then generate responses, along with references and citations, and draw conclusions. Ross also learns from experience, gaining speed and knowledge, the more he interacts with people. That is an automated lawyer. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the future. So what do? We as TVET practitioners, we have to start cultivating an understanding of the fourth industrial revolution, the risks and the opportunities. We need to start aligning and expanding sustainable TVET, and we have a lot of literature. UNESCO has a lot of literature out there that we can tap into. The World Bank, the IDB, they are putting out a lot of literature now in terms of work, the world of work and the new jobs for the future and so on. We have to start modifying infrastructural arrangements to allow for our students to start having these opportunities. We have to start maintaining partnerships. We have to move into the business of digital credentialing and allowing our young people to understand that it is not those who are able to diligently go through this program in a linear way. It is really broadening your understanding to be able to solve problems. That's going to make the difference. It is really not what you believe you have that is going to make the difference, ladies and gentlemen. We also have to appreciate the paradigm shift. We can't get hung up on what is happening and say that, boy, you know, the Lord is coming. Yes, the Lord is coming, and we better prepare our souls. That is why that nice lady came and prayed for us. But at the same time, we have to position ourselves in a way so that our young people are not ahead of us. Because as teachers, if you are there doing these little things on the board and you whisking the egg until the egg white until it's white and fluffy, they're gone a long time because they know that there's a powder that you just put a little water in and it's already fluffy. 1 minute, when you're there whisking away, you don't have to be rubbing butter into flour anymore. That doesn't happen again. In 10 minutes, you can have your cookies and they look like it took 5 hours to bake them, but 10 minutes. It is just a reality. So we must make sure that we have things at our fingertips. And so that is why Claus has said, there has never been a time of greater promise or peril. Work is about to change forever. In fact, the change has already begun.
Today, right now, you have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. Think about that. That's what technology really is. It's possibility, it's adaptability, it's capability. But in the end, it's only a tool. What's a hammer without a person who swings it? It's not about what technology can do, it's about what you can do with it. You're the voice, and it's the microphone. When you're the artist, it's the paintbrush. We are living in the future we always dreamed of. We have mixed reality that changes how we see the world, and AI empowering us to change the world we see. You have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. So here's the question. What will you do with it?
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's about, where's my frog? It's about leapfrogging. It's about leapfrogging. It is no longer incremental. And as I close, I just want to say, I see my star supervisor in the audience, Professor Oliver. You can never go unrecognized, sir, because you taught the student very well. You were the one who assisted me in ensuring that I had a technology advancement chapter in my PhD dissertation some years ago. So you have taught well. And I am also bringing some students, sir. I have Odain James, who assisted in the research for this presentation. And I also have Mr. Everett Riley, who came in on the periphery and assisted. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is about leapfrogging. It's about the preparation of a new generation. But guess what? We are equal to the task, we are capable, and we are going to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. McLean. This, we can imagine, was a provocative and an eye-opening presentation. Certainly, a little bit later on, we're going to be opening the floor for questions, so you can have those prepared. At this time, I'm going to be inviting to the microphone none other than Mrs. Nicole Manning, the Senior Director at NC TVET, and her presentation will be entitled Corporate Governance 4.0 in TVET, Pursuing Quality Outcomes for Sustainable Development. Mrs. Manning.
P.S. McLean, leaders and stakeholders, our moderator. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is very interesting. I sat there and I said to myself, I must say to the program committee and the organizers, you did a wonderful job connecting these two presentations. We never spoke. And I'm telling you, you're gonna see what I'm talking about shortly. It's amazing. All right, so the last point Dr. Mack made in relation to leaders and stakeholders and what are we going to do about all of what we would have seen is really where I'm going. That's what I'm going to be addressing. And the first point I want to note is the fact that we have to ensure an inclusive and equitable quality outcomes, and that's our business, the outcome of TVET. We have to promote these lifelong opportunities. In other words, we must not feel as if we are daunted by any new opportunity that's coming. What is very critical to understand is that economic growth is a core driver of human capital development, and that's where we're here today. Thirdly, the fourth industrial revolution, which I call 4IR, is redefining the way we work, live, and interact with each other. You'll see that I will not go through that at all in my presentation, and Dr. Mack did a wonderful job for me, and I'm very excited about that. But if you notice, there's a governance there, and there are some question marks. Those are the questions we are going to answer together. So as Thomas Edison will say, there's a way to do it better, find it. And so the journey that we'll take together, I'm hoping that at the end of it, we will have asked the questions that will allow us to answer and to say exactly what we're going to do as we move forward. So the first point is the fact that sustainability, and if we're looking for economic growth and environmental development and ecological development, social development, sustainability is where we are going. So I'll only focus though a lot more on the economic and social. And so the first thing I want to point out is the fact that growth and resource enhancement goes hand in hand. They walk with each other. As leaders, we have to understand the necessary points that Schwab would have made. Klaus Schwab, the same person that Dr. Mack mentioned. He is the author, along with World Bank, for the Global Competitiveness Report. And that Global Competitiveness Report has in it a Global Competitive Index. Jamaica sits at 79th position out of 140 economies. So of course, our other Caribbean friends, Trinidad is right beside us there, but it is important for us to understand where we place on this index, because it is telling us where we are going with these four broad areas that you're seeing. Then an enabling environment that we are creating for our youth. The enabling environment that we are creating for the workforce that we are developing. The markets in which we exist. The employers with which we work. They want to understand, as they create this innovative ecosystem that we operate in, that we can exist and we can compete internationally. Because as we all know, that the human capital development, of which our main focus, that's our real main focus, it's critical for us to understand that we have to develop our workers in the way that would have been described. Now, in that position, there are some leaders for human capital development that we have to look and see what they're doing and understand really what else can we do as a society, as societies represented here, to make sure that we make that adjustment and that change. And first and foremost, I must note that of all of our rankings, quality vocational training is the highest. It's 29th on the list. Switzerland has this #1 position. Now, as would have been mentioned, for 4IR, digital skills among the population, although we are now at 79, I know together we are going to be going further ahead. Correct? Skill set of graduates, 42nd. So for the digital skills, I should have mentioned that Sweden is ahead. Sweden is #1 in the world, and that should not be a surprise, because all of the technology and the various pictures that you're seeing on the screen earlier, even about the chip and so on, Sweden is well ahead of us. Not that I'm racing for that one, but it is very important for us to understand that regardless of what we want, the world is there. It's how we manage it that's important. The ease of finding skilled employees. So we have to make sure that we have the quality human capital in place. Now you have various levels where the outcomes are required. One, the national level, where each of us may have a different role to play. And this is what we have to embrace. So at the national level, we'll be looking at increased economic growth. We'll be looking at poverty reduction. Yes, we're looking at what's happening in the formal and informal sectors, and productivity in the new 4IR. In the institutional level, we're looking at improved skilled graduates for the fourth industrial revolution. Flexible, adaptable, trainable. Reskilling and retraining are two words used in that report so many times that after a while I would say R plus R equals 4IR. Some mathematician needs to work that one out. But what it is actually saying is that wherever we sit in this particular realm, quality instructional staff, adequate infrastructure funding, partnerships, we must look at it in the context of retraining and reskilling, and how can we facilitate that. The many jobs that were noted there as being lost, in the very same report it mentioned that although 1 million persons may have lost, 1.7 opportunities were created. How many of those opportunities can we fill? How many of those opportunities are we preparing ourselves to fill? And that is the big question. So the Global Competitive Index 4.0 is speaking about adaptability, the key to transformation. With the right skills, workers can become actors of the economic transformation rather than victims of it. We have to look at ourselves and what we're doing in relation to innovative ideas. Quality of education is key. It plays a critical role in a country's capability to innovate. So we have to look at our systems and to say, what are we going to do differently? So these are some of the questions I want us to ask, and I'm going to be asking some more deliberate ones as we have that dialogue. It was mentioned in terms of the skills that our learners need to have, regardless of what level they are, and this morning I heard Professor Weber speaking about what happens at university level. And you know, when we speak about that, one of the things that's happened to Jamaica and has been happening in the Caribbean and worldwide is the qualification framework. It creates a conversation of equivalence. So no longer, and the ISCA, that is the International Standard for Classification, we must embrace that. It does not give a difference for TVET or education. There isn't even a different definition. And so if you look for education, it will reference you to training and vice versa. The world, the standard has moved past our differences that we may have had. And so that's why this quote is so important. With the right skills, our workers will become transformers and not victims of the reality of what's happening. So in the fourth industrial revolution, I only picked these 3 areas. I'm not going into any of them, but I want us to remember in our minds those 3. Artificial intelligence, automation, and technology driven. And people must understand, automation is not sending an email and then calling somebody else. That's not automation. It automatically happens without your intervention. It moves seamlessly along the process. So we have to make sure that we have systems to facilitate that. And therefore, the only way we're going to get that done in the fastest possible time is through public-private partnerships. The reality is that we cannot do it on our own. That's why we have a system. We have the CARICOM system, you have European Union, and you have so many other networking and other types of systems in the world to facilitate that, because the reality is that we need to collaborate. It's very important to understand that the relationship we have, the short relationships we have, are not PPPs. They're regular partnerships or other arrangements, but they really aren't PPPs. And so we have to understand, as leaders and stakeholders, what is going to be that game changer for us? What are we going to do to be able to manage the reality of 4IR? Along with PPP comes governance, good governance. It's important that we understand the difference between management and governance. So if you are managing a business, governance is about giving that oversight about this management, this managed business. And so I want us to look firstly at public-private partnerships. And the fact that I am proposing that this key opportunity, intervention, that we all, sometimes persons are a little timid to engage, but it's what you do, how you do it. So the collaboration is necessary, and it's important for us to understand that integration. It was mentioned earlier, our younger persons are really not afraid of anything. I think it was Professor Weber who also mentioned about his phone, that if he wanted something to be done on his phone, he gives it to his daughter. Now, she will do it because she's not afraid of the word delete. And I've said it I've said it so many times, there's no such thing as delete. It is somewhere you can find it. I remember when I went to India and I saw a burnt, I don't know if you know those little discs that I used to have years ago. And they have a ministry they call the Ministry of Question Documents. I can't forget it. And I saw where we could retrieve information of that very, very well burnt disc and paper that we have that look burnt, and we were able to get information from it. I guess because of my chemistry and IT background, it is so easy for me to believe it. But there is no such thing as delete. Some companies, when they are destroying their laptops, the banks, they do not dump them, they smash the glass. You have to smash it because the information is imprinted on the screen. You have used it so long that a lot of your data is imprinted on that machine. So a lot of companies, they don't destroy the machines, they actually smash the screens, right? Because that is what we are up against. So it's important that we don't recreate these systems, we collaborate. We have that integration with others. So to achieve these outcomes, that is how we are going to have to move on. These long-term engagements are good. These long-term engagements will only help us to move forward. But we have to remember accountability. It's critical that we understand that Jamaica was first out of the block to have a corporate governance framework. And we have been lauded also, and it's very interesting, sometimes we compare ourselves with Singapore, that there are some areas, I know Dr. Matt knows this, but in our secondary pupil to teacher ratio, where we're actually ahead of them in terms of having a better ratio. So there are things that Jamaica, we are doing that is a little bit ahead of the game. We just need to pull it all together. And I'm saying Jamaica, but I'm cognizant that I have other countries represented and that you will be doing the same thing. So it's critical for us to understand that the framework that we're using would have been evaluated against what exists in the World Bank. And for us in the education sector, PPPs are commonly used for increasing quality education services and to increase access to and participation in these education services. So it's very important that we connect, as World Bank is asking and suggesting, and other developed countries have done it, is to partner with private sector. A lot of our private sector companies would have been well equipped, they are well ahead of the game, and we can work with them, whether local or international. We can work quite more efficiently and effectively as we move forward to achieve these SDGs under 4IR. And so I'm encouraging, I'm not going to go into social impact bond, but this is one of the actual partnership type that you can look at. One of the key portions, I'm not sure why it's not clicking, okay, right? One of the key things I want to point out is this second point here, that the government, yes, repays, but the funding must never exceed the amount the government would have paid if they were doing it on their own. And that's what I want to use to move forward as we look at these 4 key drivers for PPPs: innovation, the gap closures, risk transfer, and accountability. If you're in a partnership, or if you're looking at capitalizing on 4IR, we have to make sure that at no point in time we are paying more than we would have paid if we were doing it on our own. We have to hold our partners accountable. And so PPP governance is looking at these 5 focal points: efficiency, accountability, decency, fairness, and participation. It's therefore critical that as we focus on the governance, that we look not on the what, but the how. I must commend our Canadian partners, and Linda is here, I think, yes. Our Canadian partners who have worked with us in the past, and the fact that they work so close with the employers. We too work very close with our partner, our employer partners. And so it is important that while we work with our employer partners, we work with them at the various levels of governance. It will only help us to reduce the engagement time, the employment engagement time, increase the confidence of the employee because they know what they are getting, because they would have been so involved at the governance level. Greater alignment with industrial requirements. And of course, having done that, we are now stepping into the realm of corporate governance 4.0, because we would have now been going to this 4th industrial revolution, engage our partners in a greater way. So like other TVET leaders, applying the corporate governance framework in line with the new norm, you have to understand that to achieve these educational objectives, I want us not to focus on the financial component of governance. That's where we normally sit. There are other areas that really cause us to lose more money than the actual funding. And efficiency, effectiveness is on the top of the list. A lot of the times we have governance structures that restrict us from operating the way we ought to. So we want to put the systems in place. We want to realize all of what we have said for 4IR. But have we put the necessary systems in place to govern this new realm that we want to embrace? Have we put the systems in place to allow the flexibility for our learners, adaptability, capability? Is it that they want to explore? Can they come to explore and to do something in this new norm? And they are restricted because they hear that they have to go through a particular process. And if it doesn't go through that route, then it cannot happen. We have to change the way we think and the way we operate. Is it value added? Value added is not only financial. Return on investment is a has other components. What is also very critical for CG 4.0 is the fact that you have to have mitigating controls in place. We have to look at it from the business perspective, and as leaders and stakeholders, we have to understand what it means, because we're actually running businesses. Education is a business. And once we start to look at it that way, we will understand what it means when we introduce eCert, why we would have introduced it. It's because we want to make sure that our learners, our customers, persons in education sometimes would like to hear me use that word, but our customers have that opportunity to retrieve their information at the click of a button, at the touch of a finger. They want that. They do not want to be able to be going through any long routine process. And so, as leaders and stakeholders, I want us to look at the big picture. And the big picture for governance is that there are layers. It's the reality. So you may be at the national level, you may be at the institutional level, and there are other layers that exist that you have to work with your employers. Do we understand those layers? Do we understand how to manipulate ourselves within those layers? The information transfer from one level to another. A lot of times when we're dealing with governance, we only deal with decisions at the table at the time for the particular entity. And we're not concerned necessarily with the other things that would have caused us or would have rolled up to that particular level. For 4IR, we cannot operate like that. The future impact for current decisions also have to be considered. If we are looking at CG 4.0. I want us to understand that achieving the fourth industrial revolution, TVET outcomes, for sustainable development can only happen if we go through the corporate governance 4.0 and the PPP. Global governance have various tiers, and this agile governance is something that is saying to us, we cannot just look at the fact that yes, a decision came, we made a decision and we moved on. And we moved on. We have to make sure that we understand that internet governance is a component of technological governance, which is a component of the agility that is necessary. All of this has to be taken into consideration with the risks that exist. That's there. So therefore, I want to show you what the current governance focus looks like and what the new governance has to be. So we give oversight to an immediate single entity. We operationalize the operational construct that's very linear in definition, and the decisions are made based on the entity requirements only. The new governance consideration, if we are going to understand that we are at AI, automation, and we are looking at technological driven, we're in that era where 6 months after you buy your phone, 6 months after you are really behind time, right? You have really bought an old phone. It's the same thing with corporate governance. You have to look at the layers and operate within those layers. You have to be flexible and you have to be agile. Do not be afraid of the multi-level. Do not be afraid of picking up information from one level and making decisions for them at the next. I will end with this. We just got a video on 4IR. Well, the reality is we're actually looking at 5IR. The fifth industrial revolution has actually been announced. It's looking at the humane component because 4IR is totally robotics. Colleagues, if we have looked at the videos and I saw the faces, if we believe that we do not have the structures in place for 4IR, we need to ask ourselves the question, when 5IR is totally upon us, what are we going to do? Colleagues, the dialogue continues. If there's a way to do it better, find it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Manning, and also thank you very much, Dr. McLean. Time is going upon me. My handlers are starting the fire with me, so I'm opening the floor for questions now. If we do have a question, just introduce yourselves and you can pose a question to the panelists. Questions? No questions? All right, no questions going once. Oh, okay, great. Go Go right ahead, introduce yourself and pose your question.
Yeah, Cipriani Davis, UV, St. Augustine. With all that's happening in the technological changes, how does TVET prepare itself for the change? Let's put the priority. What is the top priority for the change for TVET?
Dr. McLean?
Okay. Mr. Davis, I presented a slide with a couple of recommendations, which of course the presentation will be available. But just to say that we have to start by getting our teachers first and foremost to understand the importance of research and the importance of adjusting their mindsets to connect with the young people. That's the first thing we have to do, is to change in the general attitude of our teachers in terms of the technology. Secondly, we have to seriously start looking at retooling and harnessing the learning opportunities for our young people. So for example, in 2012-2013, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information embarked on the development of a new curriculum which focuses specifically on giving the young people an opportunity for them to use the constructivist approach to think, to solve problems, to innovate and create. And the associated assessments are also linked to the curriculum. So in Jamaica, we are confident that as we move into this era, we would have started from the primary level in terms of creating that acclimatization to what is to come. So it's no longer about the knowledge that the young people do have, it is about the application of the knowledge. And thirdly, we now have to start the retooling. The way we do things across themes in terms of how our workshops are organized, we now have to ensure that we bear on the policymakers the importance of the provision of the technology, where it is possible to start that work with our young people. I believe those are the three most important areas that we need to focus on. And I will tell you, as adults, it may look a little scary to us, but to the young people, it is actually a natural. So we just have to facilitate that kind of environment that will allow them to fit into the 21st century.
Okay, we have room for one more question.
Let me give one follow-up question.
Sure.
As a PS, and I have dealt with the ministries, what can we do to influence the financing for TVET, which is always low priority?
I would say that there needs to be a forum across the Caribbean that speaks to TVET financing. Some years ago, I had the opportunity of working on a project to develop a TVET assessment policy with CXC, where we looked at the financing of TVET and we actually made some suggestions. I also had the opportunity of going to 1 or 2 countries in terms of the sensitization and what countries are expected to do. So there is, outside of perhaps one aspect of CARICOM, what CXC does, I don't know if there is a forum for that kind of deliberation. What I can say though, certainly for Jamaica, from the development of our TVET policy in 2012 and the facilitation of the government of Jamaica, first and foremost by supporting my PhD as Chief Education Officer in TVET, we started the integration and introduction. So we spend approximately 150 million Jamaican dollars each year just trying to upgrade our workshops, preparing our teachers, and moving into the direction of the future. So for example, in 2016 we created, 2015 into 2016 we created the Center for Occupational Studies, which actually look at the development of occupational associate degrees, which are specifically linked to what the industry requires. The lady who did it actually is now at CXC, who developed the first set of curriculum, Linda Stewart Doman. That program allows for us to transition those of our young people in the secondary system into a kind of high-tech degree that will allow them to move into the future. So now we are looking at augmented reality, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things security. Those are the new programs that are now in place. We also have facilitated our young people, I mentioned about CXC before, doing digital credentialing. So you are doing an occupational degree or even a degree, but you are doing what we call stackable credentials. You are getting the industry programs that will allow you to be marketable, because the occupational degree within itself is not going to make you marketable. But having a certified hospitality educator credential will say to the industry, this person understands the practices and standards and I can employ her. So we have done quite a bit and we are advancing further. We have also integrated the technical and vocational education officers, we perhaps have about 20 or so of them, into the general education officers core within the ministry. So there is no difference between what takes place for TVET and the other areas, because science is inextricably linked to TVET. STEM and TVET are closer than brothers and sisters. They are actually intimate. So we have started on that drive to get that integration, and it took a lot. We had to go around to the entire island to get our principals and our teachers to understand now we have a momentum. Jamaica is also fortunate to have the Heart Trust NTA that has all the money that they need. So they provide the ministry with some support, the education ministry with some support through appropriation in aid. So as a region, and I believe this forum is poised for that. I think this is what we need to facilitate, the dialogue in terms of how we can bring the region together to have this kind of dialogue. CXC is poised to do that, and they have been, but of course CXC looks at assessment which is across a wider spectrum. So the organizers can consider this as an outcome perhaps we want to look at as to how we share the best practices and assist each other across the region.
Okay,
yes,
thank
Chair.
you. I think one more person.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Good evening. Alden Morris. Let me first commend the speakers, Dr. McLean and Madam Manning, for the presentations. I think those were timely and will let us focus a lot on what we need to do as TVET practitioners. Mine is not so much of a question, but probably a thought that should be in our heads as we go through this conference and way forward. I would say that we have actually missed the fourth industrial revolution. And I say that because we still have not yet automated a number of things. We still cannot put a driverless car on our roads. We still cannot communicate in the way that we should communicate using the technologies. Because, for example, our signals doesn't work. If you have a digital phone, sorry to call the names of the companies, but you start a call and it drops in 2 minutes, you have to call again and you keep calling again. The fourth revolution assumes at this stage that we have passed those levels. In other words, our TVET system needs to be more aligned and agile to deal with what is happening. The question I think we need to focus on is what happens now, as of now, because we're now talking about the fifth industrial revolution, where we're not talking about an automated system, but we are talking about a humanistic thinking system. So the technology of the future is not going to be us trying to get a car to move from here to here, there. It will now be artificial intelligence, where I need to get a concept across, and I'm going to digitize some information and at the same time have it communicating in that way. In other words, a hologen, I could ask or minister or Webby or somebody to just come to us by hologen, holographic means, and stand before you in this crowd and communicate as if he was here physically. Now, so we're actually at that stage, and I'm wondering what we're doing as TVET practitioners to ensure that the fifth industrial revolution does not miss us or pass us, like our logistics revolution.
Can I just say, if you look through the stages, Professor, in terms of the revolutions that we would have had before, the fifth industrial revolution will automatically assume that some aspects of the fourth industrial revolution is a given. So it's not like, well, you perhaps can try to leapfrog into the fifth, but there are some givens that you must have or do before that happens. I understand as developing countries that things may not be perfect, but there are systems that actually work, and we see them. Our young people live in a different world than we live in today. They literally use their mobile phones to do everything that they need to do, and do it very well. So there are some elements that are working really very well. There are some that we are not quite there yet. And so it's going to take some time for us to get there. But I have to say, we have to acknowledge where we are, how we need to get there, and then we gradually move ahead as a developing country. I am proud of Jamaica. I sent a team of our officers to Singapore just a few weeks ago. And it is amazing when they came back what they had to say. They messaged me from there to say, boy, Dr. Mack, we are right up there. So you may not have the high-rise buildings and we have some zip line that take you up into the bushes and so on. You may not have it over the sea, but we are right there. So there are some elements that are working. So my advice to us as practitioners, be aware, get the information. We are no longer preparing our children only to work here in this country. And they go to other countries and they do exceptionally well because they can think and apply, they become the leaders. So we have to diligently work through what needs to be done, find the resources to assist us to get there. So when the humanistic part of the fifth industrial revolution comes, our mindset is there. And that is why our primary exit profile to get our little children to think, they are already being prepared for the next 2-3 years because they are no longer about rote learning and understanding what concepts and remembering definition and so on. So I want to encourage us as a country and as a region, let us continue to forge ahead. If we have one autonomous car, it will be a joy and an excitement to see it on the highway. The highway is actually set for the autonomous car, Professor. And if we have one autonomous trailer, and the day we see a drone take a bucket of KFC, it's going to be a big thing on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So incrementally, we will get there, but we can't miss it. But what we are going to do, we are going to start leapfrogging. And you're going to hear a lot about leapfrogging for the rest of this conference.
Thank you very much, Doc. We have 2 more questions. One, yes. So just introduce yourself. No? Yeah, I know the time is upon us, but I'm going to allow one quick question. Quick question.
Right.
Go right ahead.
So my name is Ricardo Thompson. I have a platform that's geared towards digitizing TVET courses. Well, my question is really regarding governance. As it relates to the new governance structure, who implemented or executed? Is it the local entities or the institutional entities or the national entities? And considering that we're playing catch up, I mean, you mentioned a few things that pretty much help to eliminate some of the silos. How do we now go about implementing this new governance structure?
Ms. Manning, you have 60 seconds to respond.
All right, let me just first start from the partnership. And my friend from St. Augustine, I want us to hold on to that partnership. A lot of times we're looking to do things on our own. We have to erase that from our minds. We do not have enough money to fund TVET. For the governance, likewise, you have to put the governance structure at both the institutional and the national level. What I'm saying though, at the national level, you have to understand and make sure that the institutional level is providing the information so it allows you to seamlessly look at the whole picture. That's what I'm saying. Make sure you get your employers involved.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for these two fascinating presentations. They were relevant, thought-provoking, and eye-opening. We're going to get ready for the concurrent sessions. Just 1 second, just before. Dr. McLean, please come forward. And Mrs. Manning, please come forward. All right, our presentation now being made to Dr. McLean. Just position yourself, right? Both present. Me? Really? Well, thank you. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And this comes to the end of the first plenary session. I now send you off to the concurrent sessions. Thank you very much.